Now I can.
Now I can hear you too. Great. How are you, buddy?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. There we go.
There we go. Now the only thing is.
There we go.
There we go. Yes. Unfortunately, I had you sideways. I like the landscape idea, but it was just not. Wasn't doing that.
Yeah, I think it's like if you start it one way, it works that way.
Ah, I see.
Maybe it's a setting. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I've never. Are you using it on your phone?
Yeah, I have an iPhone 7 that's not activated as a phone, but it works on the.
I've never used it on a phone. That's why I was asking. And what I don't know. I've never tried it. So.
Cool.
I'm weird about like doing that. Like I had like a meeting on the phone the other day because it was like my power was out, and it was just like I hated it. It was just like I'm really weird about the phone. I don't know why. I do not like talking on the phone in any way.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, on a computer, it's like you can sit here and it's like, I don't know. It's more comfortable for me for some reason. So
I feel like it's kind of a little bit more interactive than a phone. I mean, if nothing else, the size of the screen goes a long way.
Yeah, definitely. I think that makes sense. You don't have to worry about holding it. Like you have yours propped up, but a lot of times I'm like holding it and it's just like, I don't know, you feel like you're trapped or something. So,
right.
Speaking of trapped, we're all trapped, right?
We're all trapped. Look at the rooms we're in. We're in rooms.
I know. Rooms. I do have a window at least, but still, it's like this barrier. We're trapped inside these homes, and it's not natural.
No, I mean, and we want to have a home. We want to be comfortable in that space, but at the same time, we're so used to the walkabout and being out in the public and going to that restaurant or whatever and being able to interact face to face,
Yeah, I think the home is a comfortable place to be when you're done with everything else, right? You're then. So.
Right, exactly.
Hi, my name's Brian Crawford with pghmuseums.org, and over the next several weeks, I'll be talking with artists, museum directors, and even the general manager of a professional sports team. Due to the COVID-19 coronavirus, we'll be practicing social distancing and speaking over video, and talking about how the virus is affecting the people who make our culture community work. We'll be discussing how it's affecting their lives, how they're staying creative, overcoming challenges, and how they plan to bounce back when we can all leave our homes again. Please join me for COVID Conversations.
I'm here with Jeremy Caywood, COVID Conversations. I'm Brian Crawford with pghmuseums.org. And Jeremy, we're dealing with this whole social distancing fiasco. I see you have a cat behind you. I just saw a cat behind you.
Here.
What's the cat's name?
His name is Frisco.
Frisco.
Yeah.
Hello, Frisco.
He was a friend's cat, and where my friend was moving, he wasn't able to take him, and it just kind of worked out. And he came to me. It was probably week 1 of my quarantine, so it was like perfect timing before I started to lose my mind.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's that?
He's taken to me quite well.
Good. So it's probably helpful to have a cat in a time like this, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's somebody to talk to or look at and take care of aside from myself. I mean, having to change the litter and keep filling the food bowl and play with them. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who live alone, are single, and that's just it. They don't have an animal, and I'm sure that's very confining.
Yeah. I am working currently, but I would be in that situation where I have no animal here. And luckily my neighbors next door are awesome. And I mean, I don't see them that often, but we were out the other day on the deck and they were on their deck. I was on my deck and we were talking. And, I explained that I had a wine emergency because I only had this box wine that just doesn't taste very good at all. So my neighbors, and they're like, oh, so-and-so, she'll meet you at the bottom of the steps with a bottle of wine. And she poured me a glass of wine. And it was great. So I do have that. Yeah, I do have that going on. And so that's something. But yeah, it is difficult. And you're an artist and a creative guy, so we're going to talk about that as well. But you're also in a situation that's similar to mine where you are single, you live alone. Luckily, you have your cat Frisco with you.
Yeah.
But it is more, I think, challenging for people who are single because, even if you don't like your family, at least that's somebody else that you can interact with.
Yeah. And that reminds me of just a couple weeks ago, before this got all crazy, I went over to my folks' place and was mowing their lawn for them. And my mom, we already knew about the social distancing at that point. So my dad's over there on that side of the driveway. My mom's walking out of the garage, coming up to me with a cup of coffee. And I said, hang on, just put it down. And she had a look on her face of like, I know, you're right. And I said, listen, I love you so much, both of you. You're my parents, of all the people in the world. I want to embrace you. I want to hug you. When I see you, it's our natural first thing, a hug. Last thing, a hug, But like, I can't hug you, Mom and Dad. Like it's weird for me to say that. Like I want to, but I can't, And we all had welled eyes for a moment. But that's just like part of the reality. I think it's, some people are probably taking it better than others. Some more introverted folks are probably like, okay, this is fine. Some extroverted folks like myself were like, I can deal with this. Yeah. And then suddenly a few days later, we're like, I can't deal with this. I can't deal with it. Like I've
I was up there on like day 2. I think I was there.
Yeah.
I can deal with it.
I think I went a week. It was actually the day that Frisco, the cat here, came. He was still hiding, but I was like, I just started to like, and I really didn't know why. I just like started hyperventilating and kind of like stressing out. And like, obviously we can have these phone calls, we can do video chats and things, and it's great. It's fantastic. Thank goodness we have technology at this level. Imagine if we were, 15 years ago, we wouldn't be
I
like.
experienced that for one day. One day, the power went out all across like at least halfway down my street, and I was hit. And I had all these things to do, and I couldn't do anything. I had no technology, no internet, no power, anything. And yeah, it is awful. I couldn't imagine dealing with that for more than the day I dealt with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's surprising that we ever were not like this, I'm not that tech savvy. So like even this Zoom program that we're using is still new to me, and I'm still trying to understand, like, I guess you can have multiple people on this at once and things like that. So
I was in a meeting where they had probably at least 50 people all on Zoom.
Oh, wow.
Everybody muted except for when they wanted to talk to them. And they were all watching remotely. I was like in this big conference room. There were all these people in the conference room, but then there was like this giant TV with all these little squares that had people's faces on them.
Yeah.
It was neat. It was really wild.
Very interesting. I know a couple open mics have been utilizing the Zoom. And obviously at that point, I don't even know if it's if it's open to the public to access. I'm not sure whether you have to have the code or whether you can just click a link. I'm not sure, but it was definitely kind of interesting to see like, okay, so there's like 15 of us all tuned into this open mic, and yeah, that's cool. And like, again, like with the muting thing, like unless it was your turn, you were muted, which was kind of amusing because there were a few moments where there was like some lull, like some of us were like trying to talk, but we were all muted except for the host.
So, I'm just looking. I can mute you right now as we speak, actually. Well, I can do all sorts of stuff to you. I can stop the video. I can put you in a waiting room. I don't even know what that means. But
see, technology. And I also wonder, like, how much of some of these technologies were already, like, this capable that a lot of people are just now finding out about because of this quarantine. A lot of businesses, too, that are like, well, what are we going to do? And somebody low on the totem pole says, well, they've got this thing called Zoom. And then everybody like turns their head and looks at them like, what's that?
Yeah. Well, you're right. And they have existed. I don't know if you're familiar with the podcast Awesome Cast or Wrestling Mayhem show, but they've been using Google Hangouts for years. And they've had people like, especially a Wrestling Mayhem show, they have people calling in from all over the country in a live broadcasting show where they actually use the Hangouts and they send it over to his broadcasting equipment. And so they and those are like regulars. Those aren't even like guests. Those are people who are regular contributors to the show that are in every week. So this technology has existed. It's just, you're right, people haven't needed it, so people haven't really thought much about it.
Right. You know, I thought FaceTime was cool. You know, that's a whole nother level. Oh, crap. You got me back? Am I back?
Yeah, you're back, yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, a whole different level, you're right. It's interesting. And I know you've been utilizing some of it yourself as an artist to try to reach out to people during this whole stay-at-home situation. And how's that been going? And one thing I like about you is you've been very consistent with it. It seems like it's the same time every week, and I think that's really helpful to gaining an audience. So how have people reacted?
Well, I remember whenever they were like, all the shows and all the rock and roll events are canceled, and I was like, well, what does that mean for my art, my music career here? What am I going to do? And you know, I saw like one or two people go live on Facebook, and I was like, oh, okay, that's a great idea. And then I was like, but you should probably have it scheduled and not do it too much, because then people are going to be over inundated. They're going to get bored. They're going to see other things that they want to tune into, but feel like, oh, I don't know which one to choose. Mm-hmm. So I claimed the every Thursday at 7:30 to 8:30 kind of thing, you know, like make your television time slot in a sense. Yeah. And I encouraged a lot of other musicians that were curious, what do I do? How do I do this? To pick your time slot and stick with it. You know, some people did short videos multiple times through the week. Some people did, you know, 1 3-hour-long videos. Some people are doing what I did, the once a week thing. And I'm finding it to be very, very positive. Obviously, as people are using Facebook and technology more and more, we're also feeling frustrated and isolated and deterred. At the same time, it's kind of a catch-22. It's like, I want to be there and I want to watch this, but I'm also sick of staring at my screen. Yeah. So the numbers of viewers kind of fluctuates even through the hour. But I've always, ever since I started it, 4 weeks ago, I said, you know, this is like a radio that you can watch if you want to, or you can just have on in the background and listen to. And I think that promoting that was the biggest way to continue to have, viewers and listeners. It's been fantastic, the outreach of friends and peers and listeners and fans out there that have said, hey, how do I give you a tip? How can I, you know, compensate you for your music that you're doing? Didn't even think about it at first. I was like, oh, I thought I was just sharing my music, you know, sharing my craft. But at the end of the day, you're right. This is part of my business. So, you know, having a Venmo and a PayPal or a Cash App, those have been huge. You know, it's been super awesome to feel the support from people. It's strange to play a show over a camera and like you can see that there's people liking it and commenting. You can't really keep up with those all the time, especially while you're playing. And then the song ends and you're used to an applause or like a yeah or something, and there's just no noise. And you're like, oh yeah, I forgot. I'm alone still here.
Yeah.
It's strange, but it's been good. It's been good. And I plan on continuing as long as this stay-at-home order is present.
Now, do you find yourself needing to? I actually just was on with Ian Insect. We were talking about his collaborations that he's been doing on Instagram with bringing people together and stuff like that. And one thing that I brought up with him, and I'm curious how you approach this, do you feel that it requires more planning to do a show without a physical audience than to plan a show where there is a physical audience? And the reason why I ask that is because when you have a physical audience, and I just know this from like doing radio and things like that, when you have a physical audience, there's a response, right? You hear from your audience and you can engage with them and react, and you can also call on your audience to participate in your show. If you're on the stage, you can ask people to cheer louder. You can call out questions. You can invoke a response. Whereas on the radio or live streaming, like what you're doing now, you can't do that. You don't have that luxury. So I almost feel like sometimes it takes more planning in some ways, because you have to be lined up where you can move quickly to the next thing, because you don't have that time to wait for someone to respond.
Yeah, I've found, the first week I plowed through like 15 or 20 songs in the hour. I barely stopped. Mm-hmm. because of that, I was like, this is awkward. I need to just keep moving.
Yeah.
And for me, I do have a large repertoire of songs that I know, mainly original music. So it's kind of like I could just keep going. As the weeks have gone on, I've found myself sort of planning more. I never really plan shows. I love spontaneity. But when it's through a video chat like this or live Facebook and there is no response, you kind of have to like allow for more patience in yourself, accepting, no, there's no cheer, but they're sitting at home still, you know, feeling those last few chords or those last few words that I sang. I'm going to allow that space as I compose myself, maybe take a sip of something, maybe jot down a note about that song or double check my list to make sure that I have enough time to fill with what I wanted to do. The other thing that I've been trying to do is be a little bit more chatty in between the songs, even if I'm not reading what the comments are, maybe my own feelings about that last song or the way that I wrote this next one, or, you know, being a little bit more descriptive than I might be when I'm on a stage. You know, for me, it's not that I like to talk in between songs when I'm on stage. It's also not that I don't like to talk. It's just I'm used to just filling the time with music, you know? So any way that I can kind of challenge myself and learn from these experiences, you know, it's never going to go back to the way it was, but whatever it is that it's going to get to, I know that I'm giving myself experience and knowledge in those in this technological area, as well as with the patience in the performance. Yeah. Well,
we're going to give some knowledge to you. Let's learn about one of the great museums that's affiliated with us here at pghmuseums.org.
PGH Museums is made possible through our affiliates such as the Punxsutawney Weather Discovery Center. The Punxsutawney Weather Discovery Center is an interactive science center devoted to weather and weather folklore, located in a century-old former post office in a town who's known for its weather predicting groundhog. The Punxsutawney Weather Discovery Center lets you become a tornado, make a thunderstorm, or even be a TV weather forecaster. We met up with the center's executive director, Marlene Lealock, to see if she's ever been caught playing with the green screen.
Yes, don't tell my board, but yes, we play with the green screen all the time. It's fun. It's if you've never been in front of one of them, you can pretend that you're doing the weather. You can also take one of the green capes that we have and make your body disappear. So, you know, there's all kinds of fun things that you can do with it.
Has she ever forged a weather forecast and predicted a catastrophe?
I can't say that I've done that, but that gives me some food for thought.
You can create your own weather apocalypse forecast and learn everything the center has to offer at the Punxsutawney Weather Discovery Center. Discover more at weatherdiscovery.org.
We're back here with Jeremy Caywood, musician and artist as well. You're doing some art outside of music.
Yeah, I have been drawing and painting a little bit. It's not my forte, but I've always enjoyed all facets of the arts, you know, theater, dance, visual arts. I used to do a lot of ceramics work when I was in college and late high school. I've also enjoyed a lot of photography. I haven't gotten back to the photography or ceramics yet, but the drawing and the painting has come back. So that's been a lot of fun. I take a walk and I'll take some photos on my phone, and when I get back, I'll scroll through and find something and try to recreate it. And,
nice.
So that's been a lot of fun.
So you've been working on that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've seen a lot of visual artists really challenging their norm as well, and painting live on Facebook or just something that they've created and they share it. It's so important to have the creativity, and even if it's not your forte, to challenge yourself with it, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've been trying to step towards that myself. I'm still doing video, but I've been like trying to transition to a different style. So I was used to like talk radio, and I've been really wanting to do more like this documentary style. And the last piece I put out with the kind of like the day in the life of what I'm going through, trying to organize PGH museums during this COVID-19 situation, that was kind of like shot in the style that I'm more leaning towards. But, I took baby steps to get there. I did like, some series I did. I covered Jaime Guerrero with his work at the Pittsburgh Glass Center, and I kind of like cut in some different pieces with that, but that was more of a straight interview. But then I did the piece with Caywood, and I was kind of inching my way along, and then that was my first attempt at it. I think it turned out pretty well. But yeah, it's fun and important, I think, to challenge yourself. And I think, eventually you kind of get, at least with me, you kind of get stale and tired of the same old.
Yeah. Yeah, it even comes down to like when I've been trying to sit down and write music, I'm like, come on, dude, like you play the same chords here. What are you going to do to change this, challenge it? I'll go to the piano and I'll try to play that same thing on the piano, or, I'll put it through an effects pedal and see what it sounds like with that, things I don't normally showcase with my own performances. Definitely trying to learn more about,
So is that what you've been doing a lot in this downtime, trying to challenge yourself and grow as an artist in general?
Oh yeah, incredibly so. When I'm not doing that, I don't really know what else to do. I mean, all of the jobs have been shut down. I'm not allowed to work. I don't know, how it's going to work out, but I can't stress too hard on that because most of America and half of the world is going through that too. So, to understand that I'm not alone in that struggle, even though my life is different from your life and how it happens for you, to at least know I'm not completely alone in that concept. Before the Corona COVID stay-at-home orders, I was, trying to figure out what my next steps as a human in this world were. What did I want to do? Where was I going? What were my goals? And then because of this downtime, I've had some opportunity to really think more on that and try to make some plans and ask questions to myself and other people who know things, and maybe even people who don't know about that subject. But hey, what's your opinion on, I don't know specifically, but things of that nature. How would you go about this? What are you doing in your world that helps you feel like you're still stimulating your mind and body to come out of this a better version of you?
Did you ever have a lull, like a moment where you were like, I don't know what to do in terms of this situation? I know it took me a while to get motivated. I had a friend who really was pushing me to get motivated and get moving, and he was successful eventually. But there was a moment where I was just like, oh, everything, because I had all of these. So I was in a different situation where I had a lot of things in the works, and I had this grand plan for this year, and this whole thing just kind of shattered it. So,
it did.
Yeah. So I had to refocus, and it took me a minute to just kind of, I was talking with Bob and Fryer in the first episode of COVID Conversations, and I said it's almost like you have to go through a cycle of grief, and then once you get to the point where you accept it, then you can do more with it and be more creative and get things working and running.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there were a few things that I was doing as soon as the lockdown started that were this is my normal routine. I get up, I make my coffee, I make my bed, I open the blinds, I sit down with my coffee, I make a list for the day, I try to cross things off that list. So I was finding myself crossing that list off before 1 p.m. And then I was like, now what? I have an entire day still that I don't know what to do with. And that was when, in those moments, I would just sit. I would lay on the couch, or I would pace back and forth in the apartment, which was really kind of frustrating. That wasn't the best way to handle it. But eventually, I found myself saying, okay, now you've crossed your list off. Go take a walk. That's not what you do normally. You're usually quite physical with work. Sorry, I'm here. I'm here. I'm usually quite physical with work, so I don't really think about taking a walk. And I was like, oh, no, you're going to take a walk now. And then I'd get back from the walk and I'd say, okay, I'm going to clean a piece of the apartment that I don't normally clean. So I'm pulling the TV out. You know, I'm taking things off of the shelves. Like, I don't do that either. But it took me a while to, probably a week and a half, probably, honestly, to feel like it was okay to not have something to do, even if it was only for an hour or if it was for an afternoon. It's okay. I think now, as I'm getting a little bit farther into my quarantine and my solo time here, I'm finding more things to do to make the days go by. But I'm itching for, you know, to go to work or to, you know, I mean, they said something about large shows aren't probably going to come back until 2021. You know, small venues, maybe if we're lucky by autumn, you know, and then they shut the schools down till next season. So it's like, you know, not quite sure what the summer holds.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I have all this vacation time. I'm hoping I can go out. You know, everybody had all these plans for this year. I felt like this year was a year that people really planned for. Like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just me. And I
think you're right.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people had big plans for this year, and then just like they all came crashing down.
And we got a little upset about it. And I think now, I mean, for me, today's day 25, I think, day 26. I've almost made it to a full month. Makes my eye twitch. But, you know, to see, just like I said, you know, now that I'm kind of gotten through, like you said, the grief part, you know, finding those things to keep busy. I mean, it's so important. I don't really know what more to do. I mean, I can only clean the apartment so much.
So I don't know how I would deal with your situation. I'm still working, and I've actually found myself busier than I had been because I've gotten a stroke of motivation. So I've been, you know, cranking out these calls, and like my days off have been, because you can't really go out and do anything, my days off have been super productive. So I'm kind of just like rolling along. I can't imagine having all of the extra time on top of it to try to come up with stuff.
Yeah, I definitely been doing more push-ups. You know, when I don't know what to do, I'll just do another 10 or 20 push-ups. And but it's strange because I think I was mentioning it a little bit earlier in the conversation where it's like, you know, I want to be social and I want to see people. I want to be able to go to my restaurant. I want to go to that bar. I want to see my friends. I want to go to that rock show. But, you know, being stuck like this, it's just like, oh, I want to talk to everybody. And then there's like a certain point in the day where I'm like, I don't want to sit on the phone and talk to anybody anymore. Yeah. And I am sad and I am lonely, and I don't want to sit and talk to somebody on the phone. It's not helping me by sitting and talking on the phone about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's like both sides at the same time. It's like, I want to see everybody and talk to everybody. At the same time, I want nothing to do with any of it, you know? So then when it comes down to doing these live performances, I have to find myself by the middle of the week kind of shying away from the social aspect just to feel like motivated to go live again. Because so much of my time is spent, you know, alone and not doing much. It's weird.
Doing it on video versus doing it in person. No matter, you know, people try to act like it's the same. And I mean, it is a nice tool to have. And I don't know how people like myself and you would be able to get through this without this technology, but it isn't the same as seeing someone in person. And it can't truly make up for that. It can help, but it can't completely replace the in-person communication.
I can't touch you, Brian. You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Even if I see you, it's like, okay, I see you. Like, I would love to hug you, brother, or give you a high five or shake your hand or something, you know? Like, I don't know. How have you been dealing with, like, where does your mind sit with, you know, a lot of people are not working and don't have things to fill their time, but you, like you just said, you're like, you're still working, your days off, you're filled with being productive in other ways. So what is it like to be working still while a majority of the population is not?
You really don't notice because my building, it's surrounded by barbed wire and there's no windows. So you don't see anything on the outside world. So really it would just be like, it's kind of like I didn't experience the virus until much later in a lot of ways, because no, I experienced it in the fact that I knew I didn't feel my work was doing enough and things like that to take safety precautions. But as far as like my regular life, I had just gone to the grocery store before the madness happened. And then I just didn't go out anywhere. So I just was going to work and coming home. And it was just kind of like a slow day for me, or like where I wasn't going out. Like, because there are times since I've moved, I've made a point to not go out as much because I needed to, save some money. My rent tripled. So
Right.
I needed to cut expenses. So I made a point where like, even if I did go out, I would come home and eat first and then I would go out, type of a deal. Just little things like that to try to save money so that way I wasn't spending quite so much going out. So it wasn't that crazy. And then one day I went to Coons down the road here, and it was just like a madhouse. Everything was gone. And that was the first time I really experienced any of it, because I just didn't go out. And I buy toilet paper in bulk anyways. I'm still good through the fall. You know what? People here, I don't know what people are thinking. I have one giant thing of toilet paper that's going to last me to the fall. I bought it in January. Like,
it's not like you're, having, it's not like you're going 7 times a day. It's like,
exactly. And I understand
you're working still, yeah.
Yeah, and I understand like some, like, I know like women use more toilet paper than men, for example. It's not a criticism, just a fact. But even in that fact, you still don't need 5 or 10 giant things of toilet paper. You might need maybe someone else, somebody in a family needs two of them,
right,
to last them. You don't need to buy the entire store out. And that's what I just don't understand people's mentality. I never panicked over it. I never had that strokes of panic. So to me, it didn't really hit me until, I realized that, like, what it was when we were running out of episodes for the podcast. And I'm like, my podcast, that we're doing with PGH Museums, Art Talk, is going to have to go on hiatus. And then I started thinking more about the documentaries that I had planned to put together and stuff like that, and how none of those are going to be able to happen right now. And that to me was more troubling, and that's when it really like hit me, like, oh, shit, this is real. Or not so much this is real, but like I dealt with it for the first time, maybe because you're right, my life really hadn't changed much until that point. So
yeah, I have other friends who also are still working, and they've mentioned, kind of similar to you, that there were a few instances that kind of like made it real for them. Mm-hmm. Some of them wish that they were not working, that they didn't have to. Others are grateful that they still can.
Yeah, I'm grateful that I'm working. I wish, I do wish more safety precautions would have been taken earlier on. But I am thankful that I'm working, because I am an extrovert in a big way. I'm a big extrovert, not a small extrovert. I used to get depressed when I didn't have something to do on any given night because I was sitting at home and I felt like I was missing something. I've gotten better even before the virus, luckily. But yeah, so if I didn't have work, and it's funny because I've always said like work is not my social life, and I always try to make that very clear. But now it has become somewhat of a social life because that's the only place I can meet people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it is a social interaction, even though I'm maybe not having long conversations with people, but you are in the same room with people, and where I work, there's hundreds of people there at all times. So it's not like it's just like you and another person. There's a group of people there, and you still actually have the luxury of choosing who you're going to talk to where I work, which is nice. It's not like, many people where they're stuck with their families. And there are some people, married couples who don't like each other. Let's be honest. They are not fond of each other, and they're together for the kids. So
right.
You might be in a situation where there was someone they don't like and they're trapped. I'm in a situation where I am able to pick and choose who I'm going to interact with. And most of the people I work with, I get along with, but obviously there are certain people who have similar interests. There's a guy who's a content creator in the building. So sometimes he and I actually always work together, which was not planned, but it's kind of,
but it worked out.
Yeah. So yeah, there are, I'm very lucky in that instance. In so far, there's only been one case of somebody where I work getting caught with the virus. And I was worried once somebody had it, it would spread like a wildfire. But I guess luckily it wasn't somebody who works on the work floor, and they must not have spread it, or it's spreading around and we just don't know about it yet. I don't know. But
what do you call it? An incubation period or
So that's what's so tricky about this virus, and this is why it's even more terrifying that so many people are not taking it seriously, is the first 14 days that you have the virus, you're most likely asymptomatic. But also many people, in fact, I believe it's over 80% of the people will either be completely asymptomatic, or very, very mild symptoms where they may not even get tested because they don't know that they have anything wrong with them, but they're still spreading the disease to other people. So that's what's so terrifying about it. And that's why they're trying to keep people in their homes, is because if the virus spreads and then everybody goes to the hospital, then they can't treat people and people die. So it's, a lot of people are on the internet scoffing at the stay-at-home order, saying like, oh, well, most of these people won't even get sick. It's like, yes, that's true, but that's what makes it even more dangerous, is the fact that you don't know you're a carrier. It's one thing when you get the flu and you're instantly sick and you know you have to stay home, you're not putting other people at risk at that point. But when you have a virus and you don't even know you're sick, and then you go into a building, and spread it around, that's
right.
Really dangerous. And that's why they say the masks themselves aren't really there to protect you. They're more about protecting other people.
Who's the doctor who's working with Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf's doctor? She says it so well. And remember, my mask protects you, and your mask protects me. And exactly. Just every time that she says it, I'm like, man, that is just like, it's like we're in kindergarten again, but it's like the only way to get through to people.
I know.
Like, I don't know.
It's sad. So what are your plans coming out of the virus? What are your plans to make a big splash post COVID-19, or at least when it starts to ease up a little bit?
Well, I think it's time to I've got so many songs that I've not really recorded. And I had started making some plans for an album this year that I quickly, just pushed aside because of all of this. So probably one of the things I'd like to do is get into a studio and put some money towards that and get a quality recording, make an album or two. Would be really awesome for me. But something else I'd like to do would be to get out of Pittsburgh a little bit more often, traveling for music, or just traveling a little bit, taking a weekend trip or a camping trip or something like that. I guess technically we can't really do that right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, one, it's chilly outside, and two, it's still like, why are you going out in public? So those are some things. I did have, every year I do my Jeremy Caywood special. It's a showcase that I put on usually in May, and I've already rescheduled it / just postponed it in general. Not really sure when or how that will be adapted, but I do know that I'd like to get back to my showcases. There's so much talent out there I want to share with people. Mm-hmm. And I thought for the one that I postponed, now with seeing all this technology stuff, maybe there's still a way to kind of line it up and have each of the performers that I was going to have still perform via the virtual internet stuff here. Mm-hmm. And I haven't planned that out yet. I'm still just trying to make it day to day.
It's a wonderful museum in Indiana, PA. The Jimmy Stewart Museum introduces you to the life of war hero, family man, and actor Jimmy Stewart, famously known for films like It's a Wonderful Life and Harvey. In addition to the impressive display of original movie posters and awards, the Jimmy Stewart Museum introduces you to the icon on a personal level, with relics of his upbringing with the J.M. Stewart hardware store to his military desk as a brigadier general. Boy Scout awards in a recreated bedroom, and much more. The museum even has a 1930s vintage movie theater to view old Jimmy Stewart films. Janie McCurgan, the museum's executive director, was never fortunate enough to meet Jimmy in person, but she's poured through the documents and set up the exhibitions. Does she feel like she knows him now?
I do. After diving into all these displays and the archives and reading multiple stories about him in books, I really feel like I know the man. He was who he was when you saw him. He was a simple, everyday man who was so kind. And his advice to his daughters going off to college was just be nice to people. That's all he told them. So he was just a really down-to-earth, humble, kind man.
Get your chance to meet Jimmy yourself with an impressive collection that spans his life at the Jimmy Stewart Museum, just upstairs of the Indiana Public Library in downtown Indiana, Pennsylvania. Learn more at jimmy.org. Thank you for listening to COVID Conversations, a special series for PGH Museums, produced and edited by me, Brian Crawford. Support PGH Museums by joining our membership program at pghmuseums.org/join. Our music is Energy 2013 by Sasha Endy and can be found at filmmusic.io and licensed under the Creative Commons. Let us know how you're keeping your spark in these trying times. Email me at brian@pghmuseums.org. Stay safe, keep your distance, and